very, very, very odd retreat, beginning with knight d7. Oh my goodness, I did not expect this option, and it is because of the next move and the sequence that follows. This is the reason I want to look at this fascinating fight. Wei Yi now spends 35 minutes and he comes up with this. We're talking about sacrifices, we're talking about counter sacks, and now we're talking about another counter sacrifice. Let's play the move and see why the alternative is rubbish. Rook takes c5. What a game, full of ideas. It's just so rich in content. I can't believe this move. Rook takes c5. This game took place during round 2 of the FIDE Grand Prix in Jerusalem. This game features Wei Yi versus Sergey Karjakin. In a game of many draws, this game was just too exciting, full of content. d4 knight f6, c4 e6, and we have a Nimzo Indian with knight f3 after castle, e3, d5, bishop d2, stopping the doubling of pawns, a quick rook c1, maybe white will capture on d5. Let's continue, b6, he takes and then goes bishop d3. It's important to capture because you don't want to play bishop d3 first because you give bishop a6 as an option, or you're just wasting time. You can take and then go bishop a6 or bishop b7. The game goes on. c d5, e d5, bishop d3, bishop b7 is possible. Now first question, why not bishop a6? I think this is okay. Let's have a look, take, and white has a few options here, maybe queen a4, queen e2. You could just castle. And maybe black is looking a bit weak around the light squares, looking weak on b5 and c6, but white doesn't have his light squared bishop either. I think this is another way to play. It just feels a bit passive. Maybe you can go knight e5 here with f3 or f4 and then castle. If we castle here, rook e8, rook c1, white still has some options, queen a4 or queen e2, knight b8 if you go a3, bishop d6, knight b5 not a problem because of knight e4. Instead of a3 forcing the bishop back to its good square, you could go knight e5 straight away. And support with f4, or the knight could go back to d3. After bishop d3, bishop a6 is possible, but in this game we will look at bishop b7, knight e5, an early knight in the middle giving white the chance to go f4 or g4, or something else as shown in this fascinating game. Bishop d6, castle, no need to go f4 at the moment. c5, typical, black will attack the white center. Rook c1, knight c6. Black is now attacking d4 twice with the pawn and the knight. White needs to act now, and he plays knight g4. A strange retreat, but it does make sense. You are trying to get rid of the knight on f6, which is a defender to the black king. If we capture, then the white queen comes in, so Karjakin plays a very, very, very odd retreat, beginning with knight d7. Oh my goodness, I did not expect this option, and it is because of the next move and the sequence that follows. This is the reason I want to look at this fascinating fight. Wei Yi now spends 35 minutes and he comes up with this. Knight h6 check. Wow. What on earth is happening here? Black's knight is away from the king, so this sacrifice is possible. Wow. Now knight takes d5 may have been your first question, but after f5 things get very complicated and there's just no point analyzing this because the game is just too rich. Back to the game, knight h6 check, you've got to take it. Queen g4 check, king h8, queen f5 with mate. Knight f6 only move, defending h7, knight takes d5, trying to remove the defender to the h7 pawn. Black has only one move now, knight takes d4. A nice counter sacrifice. Knight h6 check was your sack, knight takes d4 is your counter sack. Queen takes f6 check is forced. You cannot play e d4 because after bishop d5, the truth is black is a piece up. So white has to take on f6. Here black has everything guarded, f6 is still guarded, and the bishop on d5 is a monster. Rook g8 next if black wants. So in the game, after knight takes d4, this counter sack, queen takes f6 check played. Take, knight takes f6, Let's consider the material in this position, 3 minor pieces each with 6 pawns. The game has just begun. Black continues the theme of this game. Knight f3 check. The sacrificial ideas just keep on coming. What a fight. You have to take it because the bishop on d2 is hanging. Followed with rook g8 check. White only move has to go knight g4. You cannot take because it is just checkmate in 2. Check, the king has to move, and bishop f3 is mate. Knight g4 is forced, you have to block in this way, and at a glance it does look like black has blundered, because after knight g4 white has a threat, and maybe Wei Yi thought Karjakin had blundered, but this is such a cool idea coming up. After knight g4, even though black is a piece down, he just continues playing good moves. He has to block this bishop c3 check, so let's go bishop e5. After this move, the bishop on b7 is still brilliant. It will take on f3 next, and also the rook on g8 is still active. h5 is next as well, so even though black is a piece down, black is just too active. Firstly, let's consider if you play bishop takes f3, why is this a blunder? Because bishop c3 check, and you cannot block well. You've only got rook g7, and you can just take the guy and go h3. Give yourself the chance to retreat, and you will be up a rook. Back to the game, bishop e5 played, a really calm, cool move. Bishop back to e2, you've got to stop bishop takes f3. So let's retreat that, and bishop takes b2. We're talking about sacrifices, we're talking about counter sacks, and now we're talking about another counter sacrifice. Let's play the move and see why the alternative is rubbish. Rook takes c5, what a game, full of ideas, it's just so rich in content. I can't believe this move, rook takes c5. What is the idea? It's to stop f5 or h5. Now what if we play the logical rook b1, attacking the bishop? This is no good because bishop f6. And the threats still exist. h5 is the big one. The king on g1 can only hide on h1. It's just no good. We want this rook to be out the way. Then the king could have gone to f1 and then white would have been winning. This is not the case. After bishop f6, black is doing good. If you go king h1, rook takes g4, we are using the pin on this b7 h1 diagonal. Back to the game, rook takes c5 played as a counter sack to the counter sack. Wow. Rook takes c5, b takes c5, and now rook b1. We see the idea attacking both bishops, and the king has time to escape. Bishop g7. The beautiful moves just keep on coming. I just can't believe this. It doesn't matter, this game ended in a draw. The game is just so rich in content. Thank you to both of these players for playing such a wonderful thriller. Bishop g7, blocking the rook on g8. But so what, h5 is coming, and a bishop discovery will be the next move. Also, the knight on g4 is trapped. Rook takes b7, h5. After h5, imagine if the g4 knight wasn't trapped, let's say knight goes to h2, imagine this pawn was here, then the bishop would go to c3. And it would be discovered check from the rook. So that is really cool. But the knight here is trapped. I just wanted to point that out. That's why bishop g7 is just so cool. Importantly, it just stops knight h6 or knight f6. Back to this thriller of a game after h5. Rook takes f7. After take on g4, rook f8, take, and now let us take a breath. Let's calm down and consider what remains. 5 pawns for white versus 3. For black, 2 bishops versus a bishop and a rook. We begin again. The game has begun yet again. They say football is a game of 2 halves, but chess is a game of 3. Each phase has been exciting. The opening, the middle game, and the end game. Let's continue. King f1. Rook b8 coming in on b2 or b1. Some entry squares for black, but white has this covered. Bishop c4, covering a2. Giving white king e2 going f4. Check, king e2 coming round the back. Bishop d5, the h pawn is lost, but now g5 is an important move just to stop black trying to get a pass pawn. It is vital white does not lose the g pawn, or else there would be an outside past h-pawn. Can't have that. Rook h5, e4. Just in time to defend. Nice. Bishop comes into d4, giving black the chance to come into the game. Why not? And activating this guy. Bishop f4 is a nice move because it stops the rook coming to h2. Bishop controls some key squares. Let's see white's idea after this. King g7, e5. The point of this is not really to get the pawn forward, but to give the white bishop the chance to retreat to trap the rook. And even though trapping the rook is such a cool idea, unfortunately it doesn't lead to a victory for either player. Another clever idea in this game, full of content after e5, king f8, bishop f3, rook h4 and bishop g3. Finding a way to trap the rook. Perhaps it is a shame for black not to be able to swing the rook to the queen side because there is a black bishop on d4. But the game now ends after rook h3. Planning to capture here because really, why did white do any of this? Bishop g2. Bishops are trapping the rook. Really, black goes for simplification, taking on g3. And after take, bishop takes e5, the game ends. After rook takes g3, take, bishop takes e5, bishop e4. Congrats to both players for playing a game full of content. Bishop takes g3, bishop takes h7. If you enjoyed this video, why not like it and subscribe to the channel at the same time. Plus hit that bell to get notified each time I release a new video. Check out one video here and another video over here. Thank you for watching.